Kyle, name 3 things of work that were hard.
The Great Depression, the building of the railroad,
I wrote my
Great Wall of China.
I was
last
gonna go with
time.
the Egyptian pyramids, but those are good ones too.
Does it count as hard work if they're being forced to do it?
Yeah.
Oh,
I
that's
mean,
a
they
good point.
were forced to do the railroad.
No, are
Were
we
they not
forced
being
to
paid?
work
Are we
this
being
hard in
forced
film?
to
But
make a
like,
film?
you're paid through.
Well, are we forced to work
mean,
hard? We
a
could be.
little
It's
bit.
not, but maybe not necessarily by Professor Morin, but by
Ourselves.
by
Our peers.
like expectations and
But then who's
social.
Yeah, but aren't
who's
we the ones?
prescribing
Aren't we the ones
expectations
prescribing the
between
expectations?
Professor Morin and us.
Excuse me.
Well,
Okay.
he's also responding to a set of like social norms that expect certain things for people to succeed and make something good.
So here's an interesting related question that someone asked me a couple weeks ago: is whether you're making, or to what extent you're making your film for the purpose of completing the assignment, and to what extent you're creating the film to either for personal reasons or to give
Make
an
the best
audience
film.
something.
Amanda.
I don't want to be rude, but I actually like heard half of that.
Okay, I'm gonna summarize
Yeah,
it for you.
please.
How much are you making the film for the grade versus how much are you making it for like your own personal what you want or the quality of the film or for the an audience?
Oh, I'm like 100% making this for myself. Except in the end, I think this is gonna be a longer film.
We can tell you're not giving a shit about the grade. No, I'm kidding.
No.
It was a joke. Oh
So
my god.
awkward.
This is a joke.
But actually, no, I think this is gonna be like a long-term project for me. So at a certain point, this is gonna be like for the grade in the sense where what I hand in will be a complete film, but for like this class. Whereas I think this film has something, like has a life after 410.
Do you think the grade reflects, or okay, so what's the grade? If the grade reflects the expectations of like the syllabus or whatever, are those a reflection of, or are those an attempt to reflect what we would want to just like do in life with our films without the necessity of having a professor
think-
giving us a grade, or are they arbitrary and disconnected from what we actually feel
I mean, does
is
it
important
reflect-
about doing a film?
Does it reflect the success of the film?
I don't think
Is
I've
that what
ever
it
done anything because
Well.
I want it. I don't think I've ever done anything like in school because I've actually wanted to do it. I've done it 100% with the intention of getting like a good grade.
I mean, I feel like
Every
that's
paper,
what
every
Including
paper I've ever argued, every film I've ever made, I've made with the intention of constructing it so that it was good academically.
Including this one?
Yes,
So
absolutely.
okay, so basically what
Which
you're
is
saying.
fucked up. Like,
So
I
what
don't
you're
know.
saying is if you felt like you should go one way, but like the class is telling you it should go a different way to become a more quality film, you'd go with what the class was saying.
for the grade.
Please don't
Yeah.
talk
Like you would.
quality
But
again. I
but
can't
so
stand
what
that
would be
conversation.
like? I think once you leave here, it's not like you're gonna do films like freely without any expectation. Like
Yeah.
instead of having grade and class
gonna be
expectations,
like
it's gonna be like
society.
social
Society, yeah.
audience expectations. Like
Yeah.
you're always respond, and that's what I'm wondering.
But that's why I
does
don't
the
think,
syllabus
like,
reflect?
I
think
don't
it-
think
I think the
I don't
syllabus
think film
reflects-
school is like not preparing us for real life because I think those standards and those expectations are always going to influence us, and we do control how much they do, but like as long as we're being graded for it and it affects our ability to like have a future, I'm always going to do it so that it's just an A.
So we're being trained to
Right.
comply to those.
I think
social,
that the
like,
syllabus
expectations.
reflects
I
what
think-
Professor Marin sees as quality. I think that that's what it's doing. I think he
I don't know,
would
I
give
think
you
the
a
way
grade
school
based
is
on the
structured
quality,
now-
not necessarily of the film on its own, but the quality of the work that you've put into it.
Yeah. Hence the deadlines, like the rough cuts
Yeah.
and the fine cuts. And
Yeah, it's about the quality of your effort.
I don't know, for me it's just really hard to give myself a grade for this class because this film is bigger than this class for me.
Mhm.
So it's hard to like be like, this is a B film or an A film when this for me is not even a complete film. This is just like a fraction of my film. Of like of like this project for me.
Well, when it's complete, like, is it gonna feel complete for you, or is it gonna feel complete in the context of
Exactly.
how people from Newtown
Like
see it?
I don't even
Like,
think
even then, you're still being graded,
Yeah.
even though it's more like,
like
it's
this
not
isn't even like
this
a
is an A,
it's not
just-
even gonna be like a complete film for like what the town deserves or like what the story can like actually do. It's just gonna be like a really either condensed version or like 12 minutes of what this longer film's gonna be. So it's just for me it's really hard to be like this is an A film when it's
Yeah.
like this is like maybe an A film a part of like
Yeah.
a lot of
Yeah,
Yeah,
for
I
ex-
think-
oh, no.
I think it's something that Mark said a couple times about how this class and film school in general is more about learning the process than about learning how to make a good film, because your first 30, 40, 50 films, if you're making shorts, are probably going to be far from your best work. Or maybe not that many, but like I'm on maybe my 10th film that I've made since I got here, maybe 8th. I don't know, but like I know that I'm not near my best work, but I've learned a lot of really valuable skills that will bring me towards my best work.
But then once you've made like 400 films, does that mean the first 200 films aren't your best work? Is it always like the most recent that you've
No,
done?
no, not at all.
Because there are people who, like M. Night Shyamalan, who made The Sixth Sense, and then
Yeah,
also
so then,
made
like,
The Last Airbender.
I don't know if I totally agree with that, because like, we haven't made all the films we're going to make in like life. So
Yeah.
just to say that something that we make now isn't our best
Oh,
work.
it could be.
It could be, but the hope, I think, of at least for myself, I can't speak for everybody, but my hope is that I will continue to make better
this
films
is our
throughout
peak
my life.
guys, enjoy it while it's here.
Yeah, no,
I
I
And
think
agree
it's
I'm
with
not
hard
you.
saying that, I just.
But I think it's hard to fit those expectations. Like for example, with my film that we just kind of decided with Professor Morin that I'm not gonna do the 3-screen projection for the screening for the semester, and you know, and it's like I did.
Can I just ask what are you doing instead?
I'm doing a split screen, but I'm gonna try it. So the thing is that the project itself. So that's like when I think it's hard. Like I'm really invested in the project, you know. And if I get an A at the end of the semester and I screen this film as a split screen, I still want to work on it next semester. And like I've, for example, from last semester to this one, I had 2 classes on incomplete because I wanted to keep working on them in the summer. So I don't know. I think it's a mixture of both things. Like I definitely like like because the things work like that, we have to get a grade by the end of the semester, because I mean that's not his fault, our fault, or anything. It's like the way that like the fucking education is scheduled. But yeah, I think like for example, my commitment with my film goes beyond the class, and I know that I can work on it over like the break, and that next semester if I can do a screening of my film with 3 screens and invite people and friends that would appreciate it, like I would, you know. And in a way that's kind of like how it works outside, you know. It's like who's gonna motivate you if it's not, you know, you
Yeah.
wanting to show stuff to people who will care about your work.
Can I ask a question? Do people think that the only way you can't be being graded is if it's masturbation?
What?
Sorry?
It's like the only way that it isn't being graded is if it's masturbation. So like I'm saying, like it would be graded by if you're aiming for a certain audience, then it's like sort of technically being graded, right? Or if you're aiming for like a certain reaction, then it's
So you mean like the idiomatic graded?
yeah.
Okay, so like what you were saying
Yeah,
about
yeah.
how everything is graded. So
And you're
Well, I
aiming
think-
for a grade even after you.
I think if anyone
finish it.
else sees it, then it's going to be graded. I think the
Yeah.
level to which you care about the grades
Yeah.
a particular person gives you are going to vary, like not even just be outside of school, but like I care way more about what Professor Morin says than about what like my grandma says when she sees it.
But like,
Because I
to
know
what
that she-
extent should you care about what any figure of authority, even if it's like, you know, Professor Morin or audiences or say, why would you care what they have to say? Like, a lot of people who have done like different things or have like, you know, developed different stuff in art or general, like, they usually sometimes just have to be able to say like, I don't really fuck what you're saying about my work, you know?
Yeah, and like, I mean, and I think that's a totally individual choice. Like, I personally know that most of the time, my views correlate with Professor Morin's, and like, if I, like, and there have been a couple times in this film where he's given us advice and we've tried it and it didn't work, but, like, generally, I know that for me, if Professor Morin approves of it, then I'm probably happy with it. I know that for other people, that's not true at all, so, I think that's a very individual thing, and it's not something that, it's not like, you should never, do it for what anyone else thinks, because like I view Professor Morin as a good sort of sounding board for how highly I think of my work.
feel like you also have to check like your motivations for making the film and like how it ties together. Like with my film, like checking like how the film is constructed and what is it supposed to say, because that could have conflicting views on what's like it conventionally should be, or if it's motivated, like what I'm doing, and if it makes sense. So I feel like listening to outside figures is important, especially when you're like just starting, like making films like all of us. But you also have to, I guess, try to feel out your own intuition, I guess. I think that we're at that kind of stage where we're trying shit out, and sometimes it sucks, but other times it can be interesting.
I mean, I think it's important to have like people that do view your work, only because I feel like if not, then it is just for yourself. And like, what is that? Like, what is this film that?
I was gonna ask about that. So you know how Professor Marr was talking about like you shouldn't be aiming just for masturbation. Do you guys agree with that? I mean, do you think there's no benefit to, I guess, doing something for yourself?
I think there's definitely benefit to
Yeah.
doing so. Like, it's like journals, diaries. Like,
Yeah.
there's benefit to that even if you don't show anyone, but it depends
It's a
on
balance.
and what
It's a
your
balance.
goals are with
Yeah.
it. Like, if you just want to masturbate, then
All
Yeah.
the time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think that
But masturbation is political. Like it's like the feminist like thing. Like it's the personal. It's like masturbating doesn't mean that you don't have anything to do with anything at all.
well, yeah. But if it's
Yeah.
like masturbating, as in like just for yourself, that you're
But
like
you can do something just for yourself. Like you can write a journal just for yourself, and then it turns into like the Diary of Anne Frank. So I think just because you have and that's like the author is like just because you have the intention of doing something like masturbatory, or just because you have the intention of doing something just for yourself, doesn't mean that's going to be how it's received if it is ever seen by anyone else, even if you never have the intention of showing it to anyone
Yeah,
else.
and I think it's sort of a double-edged sword because, like, that could happen. You could write something entirely for yourself, and it turns out that it touches millions of people, or you could write something sort of like saying, I'm writing this for myself, and then other people see it, and they don't like it, but you can't expect it. I think that you can totally make stuff for just for yourself, but you can't expect other people to have any investment in it if you're
But
making
even
it
if
just for
nobody
yourself.
ever sees it, the what enabled that thing to happen initially, or for you to have those thoughts, is not individual. Like
Oh, yeah.
it's
Yeah, you don't
collective,
exist
like,
in a void.
Yeah, and so even if you don't show it to anybody, like masturbating, like how could you masturbate if you don't have anyone to think about, if you don't have standards of beauty, if you don't have standards of taste, like you know, like even if nobody ever knows or sees you, like those things are constructing whatever you are doing. So
But I still think there's like a point to masturbating that's like outside of like showing it to people. Like we were talking about, like
Oh, yeah.
it doesn't have to just, you clearly don't exist in this void, but I feel like you can get something out of it without
Yeah, if you
like
better
not being
yourself
Anne
through it,
Frank.
Yeah.
then what's the like? I don't think there's anything wrong with just doing it as long as you're bettering yourself through it.
Yeah,
Because then you can use what you take from that experience to do other things that aren't masturbatory.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
like all the time that we all spent in, or at least some of us spent in the lab at the very beginning of the semester writing down ideas and writing all these different documents to help. Those were all completely just for ourselves so that we could make our film. So like that was writing for a completely selfish reason. It's with the intention of using it to create something better.
Let's talk about the Diary of Anne Frank in this conversation.
Do we
What do
care
you
that
think,
do we care that we've gotten pretty off of the
I
actual
think,
prompt?
I think it's
No, I think
interesting.
it's
There you
interesting.
go.
Pertinent.
It's an optional topic.
It's not like all our Moodle posts were on topic.
What do you think,
do you feel you've worked hard enough in your film?
Dude,
Kyle.
I'm sorry.
Was that
It
supposed
was
to
so
be?
cold.
I love how this is the person who
I think
directed
you're great,
the
Kyle.
shit.
I was just gonna ask it, but you said Kyle, so I said why
Not yet. I feel like, well, no, I don't think that.
I didn't
You
mean to put you in
ever-
the spot. I'm
I
sorry.
don't think that you ever feel like you have I've put enough work in. It's just sort of like, okay, now I'm gonna stop.
Yeah.
I think there's a
Yeah,
big
I
difference
agree.
between this.
I think that I will feel like I put enough work in on this film in about 9 days.
Yeah.
Like I know I put in like a lot of time. Like when I actually like look at it, like it feels like a lot of time, but at the same time I feel like I've done nothing.
It's because you're not done with your film. Done
No,
with
yeah.
your film. Is that
Like we've
Well,
gone home
It's
every
like the
weekend
tip
and I
of
still
the
feel like we haven't
iceberg.
done enough.
Like-
I have to say, I think it's a very different thing if you're doing a documentary or an experimental film. I think it's a lot easier when you're doing fiction to be like, okay, like this isn't the perfect way the film could be, but this is
Like,
like
this is
a
the plan,
finished. This is
and
a
you have
finished.
like a
Yeah.
plan.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's the
That's
thing.
what
Like
Yeah.
when we measure work, it tends to be measured very like materially and physically. You know, like in terms of film, like how much you've edited and you know how much time you've got. But I think at least for me, the amount of time that I've spent just like thinking about these things and like sitting in front of a computer and blanking out because I'm like overwhelmed about a lot of things, or stop masturbating like while you listen to me talking. And so yeah, so I think in that sense, it's not something you can easily measure. You know, it's not like I can come and be like, well, actually, last night out of my 7 hours of editing, 5 of them I was just like wondering about my film and the ideas I have. You can't really measure that. You know, and sometimes it sounds just like, yeah, whatever, like an
Not to go
excuse.
back to this, but that's why I think it's hard to like give someone a grade for this class
Yeah.
because I've like thought about this film.
Oh.
I mean, like more than I'd like to admit. Like for like 6 months, like I've thought about this film since like May, and
You're ridiculous.
like there, no. There've been like times where like
Stop
I'm
round
like,
nosing. We're cutting this part out.
That's horrible.
you are such an, I'm sorry, but an asshole sometimes. No, but like I feel like for me, like this process, like editing and everything, feels like I may have not done as much, but it's because like I've been so stuck with it.
Yeah.
Whereas, but like that doesn't mean like I'm not thinking about it all the time. I'm not like actually progressing. I feel like what you do like in here is different than.
I think this is the only class that I think about every day.
I like dream about it. It's really bad.
Yeah, it's
really
and
I had a
it's like
dream
my
in the
thesis
editing
is
lab.
the same thing. Like it's like my thesis that I write, like it's the same thing I can't stop thinking about. There's
Yeah.
never
Yeah.
a point where I'm like, okay, like I'm okay with it. Like no.
And it's not like thinking about the technical aspects necessarily. It's like conceptual.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh my god. Yeah.
Yeah, I know that, like, for me, I always, when shooting a fiction film, I look at stuff in the first day of shooting, and I just wish that I could go shoot again. And then if I do that, then I look at the stuff from the second day of shooting. I wish that I could go shoot that again. And it just becomes, if I had infinite time to shoot a film, it would take infinite time, because I would always go back to the first thing that I shot and reshoot it to make it better based on all the experience that I gained from shooting all the other stuff.
Right, and that's why, like, before Dad was saying, like, okay, good is good enough.
Yeah.
Like, you know, that's the whole idea, like, knowing just kind of when to,
Like quit. Yeah.
yeah.
I feel like it's knowing, like, when you're like, okay, I feel comfortable showing this to a large group of people
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
not just.
Yeah, when you're not
a
embarrassed
few
of
in the
it, I
editing
guess.
lab.
That's when it's done. When you're not embarrassed of it anymore.
Yep.
Let's put a to be continued at the end of our film and
High
be done,
standards.
because I'm not embarrassed.
Yeah, I don't know. I think it's
Like,
like
it doesn't
310.
matter.
310 was such a what's it called? A crash course in just everything. I don't know.
But I
Like,
think it was easier in the sense that like it was a mess by the end, but like I had a script, I had a plan, I
Yeah.
knew what days I could shoot, and then I just needed to put it together. Like
I think
now,
it was a different.
like
It's a different kind of stress because I feel like we're all we're all invested last semester, but this is such a different kind of personal investment. I think.
I'm so excited for 310. I just want to have like a set plan when I go into editing.
Mm.
It's so
That sounds.
hard.
It-
That
I
sounds
just wanna
kind of
make a
nice.
super-
It is
Superhero
pretty
No,
nice.
it's so
It's
hard
pretty
to be
good.
like,
It's pretty
I
good.
have a film, but like, where is it? Whereas with
Yeah.
like 310, I feel like it's like, oh look, I'll just open up my script and I can
The
follow
thing,
it.
the thing though, I will say about your stuff is I feel like you can have these raw materials and be like, oh, I can make something out of this. Whereas like we can be like, oh, here's our plan. We don't necessarily have everything we need to execute this plan, and we can't go back and fix it.
There's, like,
You
pros
guys
and
can
cons
like
of both.
make things happen.
yeah,
Like,
Yeah, no,
yeah,
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 that's
yeah.
why I
you
enjoyed
can't
that
like you
documentary.
can't take from like extra stuff that you
Yeah.
find along
Yeah.
the way. Like,
You
like,
can't,
And I
you
feel
can't just
That's
cut
why
to
it's
the next
amazing,
part.
but it's so
Like-
more stressful. That's the
Yeah.
problem.
For like us especially, like both of our films is like an allegory for my life in general, where it makes so much sense in my mind and I see it so
Yeah.
clearly, and then I explain it to other people and it's like, what?
Yeah, yeah.
And that's like that's the reaction I get like in life, but like and that's like how I feel about this semester. It's
Yeah.
just like what?
And maybe when you show it, it's gonna be even more like.
Yeah.
And I think that's gonna happen with my film too. Like it's like I don't know. I think we have our ideas in our head so clear, but then it's like.
But then it's
I
like
have a
what?
question
But
for
is that? I
Kelly.
don't know if it's bad. Yeah.
So you said you like always aim to like for the grade and everything. Would you ever consider making like a cut for you and a cut for them?
Oh yeah. I mean, I have to do that anyway because like I can't show small. Like all the little kids want to see like
Yeah.
my film, so I can't show them what the film actually is
Because
because they'd all have like 5-year-old existential crisis.
That'd be nice.
themselves like repeating
Yeah, I mean, like, I'm gonna have at least like 2 or 3 cuts in my film because I have to tailor it to
Even for
like,
your family.
to like a
Yeah.
Nickelodeon audience.
Yeah, yeah.
We're actually supposed to do that too. For
Yeah, we have to
like
make a
the country
PG-13
school,
version.
PG-13 over film.
Yeah.
Meh.
Wait, for who?
For the place that the location that we worked for, they want us to like show it to the kids at their school.
Yeah, and they're most of the kids at their school.
like
no,
moral
it's not how
censorship.
old are they. It's the fact that most of them are trauma victims.
Oh, seriously?
So we like have to be really careful about what we put on this film because we don't want to trigger
Wait,
an
why are you
episode.
showing it to them?
Because
They, like,
they wanted
They think it's fun.
they wanted a
It's sick
PG-13
fun. It's
copy of
so
it to
weird.
show
Because they film
what?
there.
a PG-13 rated version of it to show.
And I'm sure we're gonna show it to like the
Well,
head
people
people
with
before they show it to
Taylor.
the.
I think you should put
Yes.
like the scene of Marilee's dancing in the pool with like Taylor Swift and.
Nope, not gonna say
Yeah.
that. You're the worst.
More release version.
So how do you feel about the final product next week?
What?
Like, what do you mean? Like, would you be disappointed at yourselves if like next week the screening is not that good, or do you think that up until now, even though if the final product is not as good, like you've learned and you've like gained a lot from this like journey, and the final screening doesn't matter?
That one.
Yeah, for me personally, yeah, it doesn't really. I mean, like it would be great if the film came out nice, but at this point, I put so much time into it, and I've learned so much about like organization and all these other things
Yeah.
that like.
But it's
totally
hard because
worth
you
it.
can't really communicate that. Like we don't
Yeah.
have a time to like stand up and
Yeah.
like be like, well, look, my film was gonna be this and this and this and
Yeah,
this. What
yeah.
you're gonna see, it's probably like 20% of my
Yeah.
vision. Like you don't have that chance.
Yeah.
Like,
I mean,
people are
This
just
may this
Also
may sound really stupid, but I feel like in a way, like the success of this class, like despite like how our films are in the end, it's like how we are like with each other now. Like the fact that we've got to this point where like we're doing, you know, little video journal entries. It's like, I mean, like that's so much progress. Like we're so much closer.
We're all
Like
gonna leave.
thanks
No.
so much.
Kelly.
Yeah.
No, I
No,
really
bring out the
think,
optimism.
I think the screening
Sorry.
is not just celebrating like if we make good films,
It's
but
each
like
other.
and that we fucking made it. You
Yeah, I
know?
don't know.
We
Like,
made a film.
and we
Yeah.
you know survived somehow. Like I don't know
That
how
piece of shit's
happened.
mine.
And we all learned something.
Yeah.
Wow, so
I learned a lot.
We all learned something.
I learned quite a
how to
bit.
color correct. I mean, like if nothing else, like you could probably pinpoint at least one thing you know how to do now that you didn't know how to do at the beginning of the semester.
Yeah.
And like
Go around.
we all discovered
No.
things like
And I think that's something about this classes is that, like beyond the like discussions and the theoretical stuff, like Sam Silton.
Stop playing
When-
footsie.
Yeah, Jesse.
When Sam Silton replied about like giving like a blurb about Professor Moore, he was like he like
Spoiler
the
alert.
yeah yeah whatever, like the technical skills that I got are like what I learned from him were are the only things that I'm actually using now in my life, because he's like shooting a film, and I think in a way it's that it's like there's a lot of practical skills that are very useful, like learning how to edit, how to use Final Cut Pro or like stuff like that,
Wait, meaning what? That he doesn't care about the ideological stuff he learned?
He fucking hates it.
Seriously?
No.
That was great.
Really? You said that's the only.
No, he means out of like
The
he
only
like not
thing
that he
that
use
he really
math or
values that
anything.
there's like
Oh,
skills,
oh,
like
oh.
there,
Are you
like he
serious?
gained skills.
I have
Linnea.
apps to do. Hey, people,
Linnea.
chill
There's an
out.
app for that.
That's not what I
That was
mean by
fun.
apps.
Purposely
Sorry about
applying for
that.
everything after January.
They're the only the ones I want.
Like all the schools I'm gonna apply to are due like January 15th.
When they stop to tweet, I want that tweet out.
Oh yeah.
Note it in the log.
No.
Yeah.
That totally
back-
derailed everything.
Yeah, back to
Yeah,
what
way to break
Marco
the
was
focus
asking
of the
about,
combo.
Combo.
about like
Trying to
whether or not we
save
can be
face.
done with it at the end of the semester. I feel like something like what you were working on. It's like such a
You-
personal thing. Like Amanda and Kelly are working
Elaine
on,
probably will be.
and Elaine and Kyle, they're all like,
Nice.
and
Nice.
pretty much everyone except me and Dan is working on are all really, really personal. For me and Dan, this is like something that we've really invested ourselves in, but it's a project. It's something that it's a lot more external than a lot of what everybody else is working on. So we can both, I think,
Move
correct me if I'm wrong, but like we can both look at it
Uh,
as a project that improved our skills,
So do you think
hopefully
that-
produced a good product, and then we move on to creating our next
So do you
product.
think
that
that
will
we
be
would
much better.
have benefited if we would have been, at some point, like, being able to detach ourselves from our films?
No, I wasn't trying to like say that this way was better. I was just
No, I
saying
think
this is how
our
it
way
is.
is
I
worse.
think that maybe.
Yeah.
No, but like not the entire process, but at some point to be
Yeah.
able to detach
Oh
yourself.
yeah.
I think
Oh,
emotionally.
yeah.
That'd be really great.
To be able to be like, I'm not doing a film about Newton, I'm doing a film about like
Well, I mean,
whatever like
That'd be
That's,
sick.
it's actually,
Oh my
it's
God,
interesting
I'm
to
not
bring
doing
that
a
up
film about
because
like Laser Beyond. I'm doing
Yeah.
a film about the like Navajo who I have
Yeah.
no fucking
It,
clue of.
it's
You know,
interesting
like,
you
I
bring
don't
that
know.
up because my original script that I was writing before I wrote the one that I'm doing was more personal, and I had to detach myself from it like way at the beginning of the semester, and that led to a much better script, I think, but a less personal one. So I don't know. So
Now we're making a crazy slash.
Personal films are so hard. Like
It's
when do you
exhausting.
stop? Yeah.
Well, because we don't have a team. Like we would have editors, you know.
Oh, like if you had
Wait,
people
or-
there standing there being like, okay, we're not gonna do this, we're not gonna do that.
Yeah, you just
Yeah.
had
It'd be
wait.
so helpful, but like for me, I'm like, we can do everything. Like
I mean,
know
it
all
must be
about
really
it.
hard to like kill your darlings and like get rid of all of the things that you're so attached to. Like,
No, yeah.
And we're so like, while I agree with what you're saying earlier,
What?
while I agree with
Thanks.
what you said earlier
We said lots of things
about
already.
like, no, Amanda, about like how like great it is that the department got so close, it's also like
Horrifying.
This class.
it was
Sorry.
easier last semester to like detach myself from you and help you with the film about your dad. Like it was so much easier last
Yeah.
semester because I was just like didn't care about you personally,
Wow.
which is like
Wow.
awful
Secrets
to
revealed.
say and
Yeah.
think about because like obviously I love our personal relationship, but like it's like it also makes things harder that we actually care about each other
I know, like,
on
That's
like
what I mean,
a-
Dan.
another level other than academically.
Like last Monday
Because we
when,
can't just be like, you're like a dumbass, I hate you. Like, that's
Yeah.
a terrible idea.
like last Monday when people were giving you like
You
critiques on
don't
your
do that when
film.
you're with your friends. Oh, this
I mean,
culture is so
No, like
strange.
as
No, I know exactly
I
what
was
Amanda's
equally as
saying.
stressed. Like as people were
But, like,
giving
you
you
wanna,
critiques,
like-
I was like, ow.
Yeah, and I felt
Oh, I see
really
that.
bad saying anything critical. I feel at this point I feel
But
really
that's
bad
my
saying anything
point, though.
critical
Like,
about
we
anyone's
shouldn't be
film.
afraid to be like,
I
like
know.
we shouldn't tiptoe so much. Because I feel like
Okay,
it comes
everybody,
out worse
I
that
was
way.
like, your film's not good.